Welcome to Talks with Tracy, with certified hypnotherapist, life coach, and licensed mental health professional, Tracy Claremont. Tracy will share her healing journey and explore the many meaningful alternative healing methods in our world today that will support you in doing your own deepest emotional healing. So please welcome the host of Talks with Tracy, Tracy Claremont. Let the suffering end and the healing begin.
Hello and welcome to Talks with Tracy. I'm your host, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold Brave Television Network. Thank you all for joining me today. I always so appreciate all viewers. And also thank you to Bold Brave Television Network for having me. When I signed on to do this show, Talks with Tracy, I thought I was going to be talking a lot about hypnotherapy. That is what initially drew the network's attention to me. But the producers did tell me that I could talk about anything I wanted to. And here I am on show number 25 already, and I've yet to really focus on hypnotherapy at all. But do know that I will be doing several shows in the near future about hypnotherapy, how it works, why it works. I'll be providing lots of beautiful examples of hypnotherapy that I have done with people that has really been effective, and then also sharing other stories of other hypnotherapists and the work they've done, and sharing my own stories about hypnotherapy that has been done with me and the healing I've done around that. I'm even going to go into past life regression hypnotherapy, which is super interesting and really quite mind-blowing. So that's all to come in the future, and I look forward to doing that. So I've been absolutely honored to have so many wonderful guests on the show who've shared their own healing journeys and also shared how they guide people in their healing. I really believe there's so much to be gained from hearing other people's stories, from sharing. I talk about joining in sameness with people, and these my guests who've shared their stories, they've just come from all different areas of life and perspectives. But and sharing these stories is just healing in itself, right? But joining in sameness and really recognizing that we are more alike, we're more the same than we are different. That is powerful. So, as you know, this is a show about deep emotional healing, but how do we even begin with that? Where do we start? When we're at our lowest points, it often just feels so impossible to motivate ourselves to create positive change. We are often just consumed with fear. We get stuck. We slip into places of helplessness and hopelessness. So how do we even start? Well, I am determined by way of this show to show everyone that healing is possible. That's why I share these stories. And through the sharing of these stories, you hear examples of how people have done it, how other people have done it, and you can see that it's possible. And you can begin to recognize patterns, emotions, beliefs that are present in our own lives when we hear similar patterns, emotions, and beliefs in the lives of other people. And that helps us to bring our awareness up so that we can really start to address our issues. I want you to have those moments like when you're listening where you say, oh my gosh, me too. I've had those same kind of feelings, and really be inspired to do the healing around that. So now I mention my sisters, Martha and Hiccups, frequently on the show. They're a big part of my life. They watch every Thursday morning, and I appreciate both of them. Now, my sister, Hiccups, she has told me that that Thursday mornings, it's like a Thursday morning therapy session when she listens to the show. Now, sometimes she'll be sarcastic and she'll be like, well, I wasn't really ready for that therapy session this morning in my pajamas. But then she'll also follow it up by saying, but I really related to what that person was talking about. I've felt those same kind of feelings before. And, she gives me great feedback and says that she appreciates the story of everyday people doing their healing. That is how I want everybody to feel when they watch this show, when they listen to this show. I want people to see that they can also experience this kind of relief that brings joy and fulfillment and peace, that it can bring you to a place where you're living in that highest vibration of emotion. And that's where true holistic health lies. That's where it is. So she's doing the work. She is still cussing me to this day for gifting her with Brene Brown books, but she's doing the work and I'm proud of her. So it's important to see how other people bravely do the deep dive into their own mud and muck of emotional experience, and how they do the work to bring it into their suffering. It's good to see how other people do it, and how other people, like when they went to that broken moment, or what I like to call that broken open moment, how they started to climb out of that situation and do their healing. And in this way, we can be encouraged and inspired. We can relate. We can be left with that knowing if they can do it, I can do it too. So that's really what I hope to inspire by doing this show. So today, I would like to do part 3 of Tracy's healing journey. I did part 1 on episode 1, and on episode 1 of Talks with Tracy, I laid the groundwork by talking about the suffering and the challenges in my life that led up to my broken open moment. And in episode 2, I summarized years of healing in 1 hour's time in episode 2. So that was a challenge in itself. So today, in part 3 of my own healing journey, I just like to go into greater detail about some of the personal growth that I did. And in the process, I'd really like to draw attention to just how little I knew and understood about all of this before doing my healing. I don't want anybody out there to watch me on this podcast and say, well, yeah, you were able to do it because you are this and this and that and that and this, but I'm not. I don't want anybody to have that feeling. I didn't know how to do this when I started in on this. It all unfolded for me. So that's what I'm going to try to demonstrate today, and really drive that point home, that I really knew nothing. I didn't have any self-awareness of my issues. Now, I'm a licensed mental health therapist. This is true, but that doesn't mean just because I can help other people develop self-awareness and insight and address their emotional needs, that doesn't mean that I'm an expert on doing it for myself. It doesn't mean that at all. In fact, some therapists out there, they become therapists to deflect away from their own personal emotional issues, and they help others because they are having trouble helping themselves. Now, I'm not judging anybody, and I'm not saying that that's every therapist out there by any means, but I mean, it is the truth, right? Just because we can do it for other people doesn't mean that we can do it for ourselves. So at this point in my life, I understand a lot about life purpose and meaning, and I am very much into soul consciousness. I have an understanding of what I came to this lifetime to accomplish, and I'm doing my very best to fulfill this purpose. I talk a lot about core beliefs, and I am aware of core beliefs that I have held about my own self, that I've had to work with. I've had to work on those core beliefs that have held me back, that have limited my potential. I've had to work on changing those core beliefs. That's where I'm at today. But how did I get here? How did I figure all this out? How did I take myself from a place of powerlessness to a place of being powerful? Now, I don't mean powerful in the sense of like dominating other people. That's not me at all, but powerful in the sense of knowing my worth and recognizing my potential, seeing myself as limitless. How did I get there? You may find yourself saying, I have no idea how to get there myself, but I'd like to be there. And maybe you're saying, I don't even know what soul consciousness is. let alone know my purpose and what I came here to do. And that's all valid. I understand that. That's where I started. I was at that same place. Maybe you're saying you don't even really know if you believe in any of this. That's valid too. It's all perfectly fine. I get it. I was once there. Like I said, it took, I mean, this was just several years ago that I knew nothing about any of this. So let's just take a brief minute to kind of go back in time and um, remind everybody of the actual hot mess that I was several years back. Okay. So I was going through the motions of life. I was like, I was on autopilot. I was caught up in patterns of life that were not healthy for me. Unbeknownst to me, I was running on core beliefs of unworthiness and not enoughness. Unbeknownst to me, I was moving through the world, trying to remain unnoticed, trying to hide, trying to please others, trying not to stand out. All of that unbeknownst to me. I really had no awareness of this. I was just moving through my life. And this left me feeling unappreciated and exhausted and depleted. My health was deteriorating. My autoimmune system was literally attacking itself. I was living in an outside environment of internal stress, toxic stress, that created an internal environment of toxic stress within my body. I was in a dysfunctional relationship. I had joyful moments. It wasn't all horrible, but the toxic moments outweighed the joyful moments. I enjoyed my kids. I loved my children, raising them. I had happy moments along the way, and those kept me going. But overall, I also enjoyed the work I was doing for quite some time. But even that turned into a toxic external environment. So, and I had a hard time setting limits around work. I kind of worked myself to death. So I became unhappy. I was depressed. I was anxious. I just couldn't do it anymore. And, at my lowest point, my broken open moment, I really did feel powerless and hopeless and completely out of control of my life. And I wasn't really living. It was like I was kind of letting life happen to me. So that's not okay. And then one beautiful spring day, my soul spoke to me. Now, I didn't know that this was my soul speaking to me. I was literally just driving down the road in my truck. It was so pretty, the sun was shining, and all of a sudden I was just overcome with this wave of joy. What I now know was a wave of love for myself. And what I now know was my soul really speaking to me. And I became overwhelmed with this thought that it was time to live my life for myself. I remember thinking so strongly, and I was so confident, I'm going to take back control of my life. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do relationships the way I want to do them. I'm going to be in charge of my finances. I'm going to do things that bring me joy. I had given up control of my whole life, my personal life for sure. I'd handed over control, and I had marginal control of my career life at that point. But in that moment, I just knew it was time to take back my life and be in charge. And it was like exhilarating. It was so great. I just felt this love for myself in that moment. So I went home and I announced it to my partner, and he looked at me and he said, "What about me?" And that, my friends, was the beginning of the fight for my freedom, of the fight for my happiness, the fight for myself. And let me tell you, it brought me to my knees. It was many, many broken open moments, and so many moments where I wanted to give up, and so many moments where I questioned whether or not my own happiness was worth it all. Thankfully, I had my sister Hiccups to say, "You get to be happy too, and keep going," which I appreciated. And I had the support of other people, but standing up to my herders was really, really, really difficult. And I mean, this battle, it went on for like 3.5 years. It was extended period of time. But in this period of time, I began to develop my soul consciousness. And now I understand that out of some of the most painful of experiences comes the most meaningful growth. Now, this was a pathway to expansion. So, again, I did not know this at the time. I did not know what was happening on that day when my soul spoke to me, that beautiful day. I remember it so clearly. I could remember the feeling I had. I had no idea what that was at the time. And I also was so living in my own world, I didn't realize that the response and the reaction I would get from other people when I then launched in to standing up for myself, standing up to my herders. And it was a journey in itself. So, um, let's see. So it's time to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will be sharing with you how I went from knowing nothing at all about soul consciousness to really living and breathing it. So take a moment, do a little self-care out there. I'm going to do the same. You're watching Talks with Tracy on Bold Brave Television Network. I'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy, coming to you live on Bold Brave Television Network. Thank you so much for joining me again. Today I'm bringing you part 3 of Tracy's healing journey. I don't know how many more parts there are. I'm sure there's many more parts to come because there's so much to talk about. Today, though, I am wanting to bring special attention to, I want to go into greater detail of my own experiences, but I also want to emphasize the fact that I did not know how to do any of this when it happened and when it started. So at the end of the last segment, I was describing just being in this broken open moment and feeling defeated and powerless. And I was in a battle for my freedom and my happiness for myself. And it was during this time that I came to have my first experience in knowing soul consciousness. Now, I was in the process of making these huge changes in my life, that were resisted and fought against, changes that I was really judged for by so many people, but all changes that I had to make for my own personal health and happiness and growth. So one day during this time, my friend Abby, I ran into my friend Abby and we started talking, and she could see just what a physical and mental mess I was. And she was concerned. So she said, "You really should get a massage." And she gave me the name and the number for a massage therapist. And she was like, "Please schedule with her." So the name of the lady that she gave me was Mary Gertson. And unbeknownst to me, Mary was much more than a massage therapist. She was also a highly gifted psychic medium. Now, I didn't know that, but I did I appreciated Abby's guidance, and I went to get the massage. And as I was there laying on Mary's table, Mary, she had this beautiful, gentle way about her. She said, are you interested in hearing messages from, from the other side, from the spirit realm? Are you interested in hearing messages I'm receiving? Now, these were also messages, I didn't know it at the time, but they're messages, from my own higher self, from my soulful self. So, I was in this time of making huge life changes that not only affected me, but affected my children and my family. I was absolutely desperate for reassurance that I was doing the right thing. And it was so frightening. And, I was trying to have faith, but I was really just overwhelmed with fear. So, absolutely, I wanted to hear these messages. And I had never seen a psychic before. I'd never talked to a medium before, but I had always thought it would be really awesome to do so. I didn't know where they were, and I hadn't taken the time to look into it. And I also had a fear that that would just be like people would think I was weird if I did those things. I was into meeting the expectations of other people, and that didn't fit into that. But here I was, suddenly receiving messages through Mary, and I was just hungry for this guidance and direction. I didn't know it at the time, but I was in desperate need of connecting to my higher self, my soulful self. I was just so lost, and I needed answers. I mean, I knew I was a mess, but I didn't know what I needed. So this is how I came into my soul consciousness development. Some may say that this is by chance or coincidence. However, I do know that this is actually divine intervention. I ran into Abby for a reason that was meant to be. Abby gave me that information. I came to see and know Mary Gertson. All of this was meant to be. The universe was providing me exactly what I needed. And I was able to recognize this and lean into it rather than veering away from it because it was unfamiliar. Now, this is an important thing to note. When there's an opportunity for growth, when an opportunity for growth presents itself to you, then take it. Be aware of it. Be mindful of what you're drawn towards, compelled towards, and move in that direction. Even if you're unfamiliar with it, lean into it. That's your intuition. That's your inner guidance talking to you. And you follow that. So what is soul consciousness anyway? It is the understanding that you're actually a soul inhabiting a body, that you're actually a being of light, a being of energy. And, you're not actually your body. Rather, your body is a vessel that your soul uses to experience life. And also, that means that everybody else is a soul having a human experience as well. Our soul, it moves us, it guides us, even when we're not aware of it. So it's that understanding. So I learned through Mary so much. My sessions with her were life changing. I'm so thankful I was drawn to her. She helped me to understand that our souls, they're just waiting for us, eager to give us guidance. And through her, I was able to receive messages from my own higher self that provided me with that reassurance that I was needing, that I was doing the right thing. And, she encouraged me to have faith and leave fear behind. Now, that took a long time to do. That was a long process. I mean, I had lived my entire life in fear. I didn't know that, but I came to realize that. So it was like she was explaining myself to me. It was the strangest thing. She didn't even know me. Now, I came to know her very well, but initially she didn't know me. But she was explaining my life and describing my life to me. It was like she had a front row seat to it and was describing what it was and why it was. And actually, she was putting meaning to my experience, or maybe more accurately, my soul, was putting meaning to it through her. Now, she was the first person to teach me about like palmistry and the lines in your hand, and how this is a map about your life lessons and what your soul came here to experience. And what, she described our lifetimes as our time on earth as being the equivalent of attending a university, and our souls have chosen what we're going to major in and what we're going to learn. And for me, she taught me that my learning was to be done in the school of love. And the school of love, it's a consciousness. I don't know all the consciousnesses. I'm not I'm not savvy enough to describe all of those, but the school of love is one of those consciousnesses. And I was to experience life through that, like a filter, like I had a pair of sunglasses on with shaded lenses, and they were all colored by the school of love learning. And that's how I'd experienced the entirety of my life. Now, this was a lot to take in, honestly, and it was kind of hard to absorb at times, but I was listening intently. I was even taking notes and reviewing it because I really wanted to incorporate this into my knowing and my daily living. So, she taught me that my particular area of learning was to be in the experience and expression of love and closeness, that my soul chose to do learning in this area the through human experience. And she kind of dropped a bombshell on me one day where she said that this kind of learning, it was going to have an underlying fear of abandonment. So I was like, what? Fear of abandonment? Oh my gosh, yes. I had been in so many relationships, and I had had behaviors that didn't serve me because I was so afraid of being abandoned. But I honestly didn't understand that because I had a really solid relationship with my parents in childhood. And doesn't fear of abandonment come from, disrupted caretaker relationships in childhood? Well, that wasn't me, so I didn't understand that. But here she was saying that I was going to experience this fear of abandonment throughout my life. So she told me that it will be very important for me to explore my own feelings, acknowledge my own feelings, and then be willing to and able to express my feelings at the appropriate time, at the appropriate level, and to the appropriate people. This will be a challenge for me. And yes, it absolutely had been my challenge for so long. I mean, I spent my lifetime stuffing my feelings, living according to the expectations of others, not using my voice, people pleasing, allowing others to control me and take advantage of me, and just pretending to be okay. That's how I'd been moving through life. And this, to be different, would be a challenge. And so, for example, she taught me that an appropriate and important time to acknowledge and express my feelings would be when somebody breaks my heart or betrays me. Now, these moments would be moments where my fear of abandonment would really kick in. And in fact, that had been my experience historically, right? In fact, in these moments, I would masterfully just set my own feelings and needs aside, choosing instead to pretend that I was okay and focus on the happiness and needs of others. That's what I'd been doing for years. And Mary showed me that my learning would come in doing just the opposite. That was my challenge, to do the opposite, and then I would learn. So hearing all of this, quite honestly, was a bit shocking at first. And like I said, I knew nothing about this. I really didn't. It seems surreal that she was able to so accurately describe my life experience from the perspective of what my soul came here to learn. And she was describing patterns of behavior and emotion that I had experienced throughout my lifetime, in my childhood, in my intimate relationships, even in my career. It was kind of mind blowing. But these were experiences, these were like internal emotional experiences I had not shared with anybody. In fact, I even lied to myself about them for lots of years, right? Because I was pretending to be okay. So she also taught me about life purpose, and she explained to me that our life purpose is what our souls come to this lifetime to do, and living our life purpose leads to our greatest joy and fulfillment. And the way we live our life purpose, we must work our life lessons. That's soul consciousness. So I came to understand that these life lessons, they're often very painful. They're often very painful processes, this learning, but I mean, growth is often painful, right? Growth involves change, and change is scary and change is uncomfortable. It involves going into the unknown. I would be challenged to push through my discomfort and work through it and overcome it and face these fears. And in this way, I would move closer and closer to that end goal of unconditional love and acceptance for myself. So in this school of love, I was to do my learning in the context of relationship. I would later discover that this learning started immediately in my infancy, unbeknownst to me. But I wouldn't put that all together until I started doing healing and hypnotherapy. And that issue of abandonment, though, what I would discover, I've been dealing with that issue of abandonment right from the get-go, from my infancy, the very beginning of my life, and it laid the groundwork for it to play itself out. I'll talk more about that, though, in my next segment. So it's time to take another commercial break. You're watching Talks with Tracy on Bold Brave Television Network. Please join me after the break.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy, coming to you live on Bold Brave Television Network. Thank you for joining me once again. So I've been sharing part 3 of Tracy's healing journey. In the last segment, I shared with you how I began to develop my soul consciousness and the learning that came from that. Now, please remember, these are all things that I had no awareness or understanding of until I went through the healing process. These things presented themselves to me. It all unfolded for me. Now, you may be thinking that that wouldn't happen to you, but it will. It does happen to you. You just have to be aware of it and you have to notice it. There's many things that unfold for us that we don't notice if we're not open to receiving and really paying attention and being willing to follow it. So I didn't even know that I needed to learn these things. I was quite clueless. However, when it presented itself to me, I embraced it and I went fully into the guidance and the learning, and that's what's important. So this process of being shown the way, maybe it's something as simple as watching this podcast today. Maybe that's it presenting itself to you. All it takes for your own personal growth is to notice what interests you, to notice what you're compelled towards, what you're moved towards, and then, to follow that Maybe you hear something today that sparks your interest. Listen to that, lean into it. That, when we have that spark of interest, that's your soul talking to you. That's your soul speaking to you through your intuition, guiding you. It's just waiting to guide you. So now, after Mary had sparked my interest in soul consciousness, I didn't just follow it, I dove into it. I began to read books about metaphysics. I began to bring this information into my thinking, into my world, into my daily living. And, you can't experience something until you know it exists. If you know nothing about something, if you know nothing about the existence of something, of course you can't learn about it because you don't know it exists. But once you do know it exists, you can really dive in and you can start your learning, and then you can start to experience it because your awareness is drawn to it. So that's exactly what I did. I was just fascinated by it and hungry for the guidance. So I continued working with Mary. Working with Mary led me to the amazing Shirley Mitchell, who is a hand reader and a miracle worker. She is amazing. She's appeared on Talks with Tracy. Working with these two amazing women, I came to understand that my lessons revolved around love and connection. I came to understand that my challenge in this lifetime is to express my authentic self, to be vulnerable and express my wants and needs and desires and be who I truly am. Now, once I learn to do this, that is what will get me the love that I want, and I'll be able to give the love that I want to give in the way that I want to give it. And this is how I will create a meaningful give and receive flow within loving relationships for myself. So I now recognize that the purpose of these, incredibly difficult challenges, these super painful challenges, all these life events, they that I'd been experiencing, I now recognize that they were for this purpose, for this learning. So now I understood that I'd chosen these relationships and these experiences and this learning. It doesn't come easily. It's not meant to be easy. It's really very painful and sometimes very terrifying. But that's how we expand. I came here to learn about it, and it was meant to help me grow. And that really put a whole new framework around these experiences. It reframed it for me, knowing that I chose this. It took the powerlessness of it, the helplessness and the hopelessness out of it. It actually gave me strength, and it put meaning and purpose to it. And I began to see that even the most painful experiences are actually blessings in disguise. There's something that I am meant to learn from. And now today, when I have a painful experience, I ask myself, okay, what am I meant to learn from this? Even my personal health, my diabetes, I say, what am I meant to learn from this experience? Because I know that I chose it. So I came to understand that I needed to bring my own authentic self forward, stand in my own personal power and greatness, or I would forever be stuck in that pattern of catering to the desires and expectations of others and neglecting myself. And that is just that wasn't sustainable. That created misery and suffering. I couldn't go on like that forever. In fact, standing in my own personal power is the pathway to my greatest joy and fulfillment, and that place of self-love and self-acceptance. So in this way, I began letting go of fear. I began to understand the work that I needed to do moving forward. And it was really this transition from powerlessness to being powerful and understanding my infinite potential and my limitlessness. So in the opening comments of Robert Schwartz's book, Your Soul's Plan, great book, I love it. He says, and I quote, "All my life I had viewed my challenges as meaningless suffering and their occurrence as random and arbitrary. Now, had I known that I'd planned my challenges, I would have seen them rich with purpose. That knowledge alone would have greatly eased my suffering. Had I also known why I'd planned them, I could have consciously learned the lessons they offered. Feelings of fear, anger, resentment, blame, and self-pity would have been replaced by a focus on growth. And perhaps I might even have been grateful for the challenges. I love that quote. I love it so much because that's where I have come to be. That's what I have come to understand with my soul consciousness. So as I moved forward with my healing, I really began to tune into and listen to my inner voice. I began to follow my intuition. I had always felt these like twinges and pulls towards things in my life. However, when you live in fear, you don't explore, you don't go to the unknown. You just continue in your what is familiar with you, right? Whether it's good or bad for you, you continue on with what's familiar. So now I was fully listening and I was fully tuned in. So one day I was scrolling through trainings looking for something of interest to put towards my, like trainings of interest to put towards my continued education units for my professional license in mental health. And I felt myself compelled to purchase a hypnotherapy training. I'd always kind of been interested in hypnotherapy, but I'd never been willing to move into it. And I had felt those intuitive pulls. However, in the past, I ignored them. I'd always been drawn towards relaxation exercises, guided relaxation, uh, meditations, visualizations, things like this, but I never did them. And I never did them because I was afraid my clients would be too awkward if I was guiding them in a meditation, or they'd think I was weird or whatever. Well, come to find out, my authentic self is a little strange and a little out there, a little woo-wooey. And I've always been that, but I never I never wanted to show that. I always hid that. But now I had made a commitment to myself a few, a little while back. I'd made this commitment to myself that whenever scared Tracy like popped up on this shoulder and was like, "No, Tracy, we don't do that. We don't know that." I have made a commitment to myself to say, yes, I'm going to do that. Whenever Scared Tracy pops up, I say, yep. That's how I ended up doing this podcast. When I was contacted, I was scared. Tracy was like, we don't do podcasts. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do podcasts now. And here I am. So I continue to do that. And that is part of my ongoing work on embracing my authentic self. And, Mary Gertson, she told me that I needed to let my freak flag fly. And now I'm letting it fly. I'm super happy about that. Anyway, so I'm committed to following my intuition. So I began to learn hypnotherapy, which provided me even greater learning and led to even more personal healing growth. I spent years, in fact, studying hypnotherapy models and practicing. I forced myself to become comfortable with that which was uncomfortable until I became very comfortable with it. So I let go of that fear of being different. So with hypnotherapy, I learned not only to help others, but I did healing myself. So remember how I said that my soul is doing work in the school of love, and that involves an underlying abandonment issue in relationship? Well, I found out through hypnotherapy that I had started working on that from the get-go. So in this hypnotherapy training, we all had to take turns being a demonstration with the trainer, Mark Johnson. Now I was still in this, don't want to be seen hiding stage. So I did not want to volunteer for any of this, but I knew I had to at some point because we all did. So this day came where he was going to do a regression and work on an issue, and he wanted to volunteer. So I volunteered, and I said I wanted to work on anxiety and insecurity, a fear of public speaking even, that had followed me through my whole life. Now I thought that I knew where this came from. In my conscious mind, I had some memories of childhood experiences that I thought I was going to go to. But, what ended up happening is I went back, he regressed me back all the way to a scene where I was 1.5 years old. I was in a sterile hospital environment. I had had surgery on my hips. And I was just crying, crying, crying. My mom was there. I was clinging to my mom. I could see that my mom was in pain as well. She was trying to comfort me. She was trying to keep herself calm. And I could just see the pain in her eyes. These nurses were trying to help me, and I didn't want to have anything to do with them. But, back then, they didn't let caretakers, parents, stay overnight in the hospitals with their children. So this was a scene where I was leaving my mom. Well, thankfully, Mark knew enough to say, "What are you needing in this moment?" And I told him that I needed to be invisible. I needed to be unnoticed so I could leave with my mom. And in that moment, I developed a core belief that I needed to remain unseen for my protection and safety. And that core belief followed me right up to the moment that day in hypnotherapy. It followed me all the way through to that. But I was thankful for the healing that he did in that session with me. It was life changing. So I did, from a soul consciousness perspective, this was the challenge that my soul chose that would teach me about love and connection with relationship from the get-go. It did involve abandonment, but granted it was unintentional and forced abandonment, but abandonment nonetheless. So this established those core beliefs that would lay the groundwork for my learning in the future in the School of Love. Amazing. All right, that's a lot, I know. It's time to take a commercial break. When I return, I'm going to kind of drive home my point in my final segment about just how little I knew about all this before I did my learning. So please join me for that. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy, coming to you live on Bold Brave Television Network. Thank you for joining me for this final segment. So in the beginning of this show, I said that I not only wanted to go into greater detail about my own healing journey, but I really wanted to drive the point home that you do not have to know anything about this to embark on your own personal experience. And just really want people to understand that you just start, you follow those places that you're drawn to, that you follow your intuition. You just become aware of what you're drawn to and what is unfolding before you, and then you follow it. That's the most important part of doing this healing. So just to drive my point home, I want to share with you one more example of just how clueless I was prior to my learning and this process of healing. And again, sharing so that you understand, I did not start with all of this knowing. That is not where I started from. So my example. So I mentioned the hypnotherapy training that I did with Mark Johnson. So in that was a training that took place over Zoom, and it was during COVID. So we would have breaks where we could, just take a 10-minute break or whatever. Well, one day we took a break and I decided just to stay on camera. I was looking at my notes and things like that during this break. And there were three men who also chose to stay on, and they were talking to each other and they could see me as well. But so they're talking, and all of a sudden during their talk, they start talking about the pineal gland. So have you ever heard of the pineal gland? Well, I hadn't. I had no idea what that was. I just heard these men talking about this all of a sudden. So imagine my surprise when I suddenly found myself on camera there and listening to this discussion that these men were having about what I heard as pineal gland or penile gland. And I thought they were talking about like something in male private parts, right? And I I can tell you that I was like, oh my God. Inside, I was like, what do I do? They can see me. I'm on camera. Do they even know I'm here? Well, yeah, they can see me. Like, do I jump off? Do I stay on? All this is going on in my head as they're having this discussion. And they were talking about a supplement that you could put on the bottom of your feet that would open up your pineal gland. And I was like, what the heck kind of issues are they having? Right? I didn't know. Well, thankfully, I was saved by the instructor returning and us going back to the training. And then later on, when I had a moment, I Googled pineal gland to see what this was about. And it turns out it's actually a gland that everybody has that doesn't depend on gender. It has nothing to do with male private parts. It's actually a gland that we have in the back of our brain. It's like a teeny tiny pine cone shaped gland that, when activated, it can heighten your sense of intuition. It can bring clarity of thought to you. It can increase your awareness. So that's why they wanted to a supplement to strengthen their pineal gland, pineal, by the way. So that's why they were talking about this supplement, and that's how little I knew. I was learning. So now today, I actually have studied and am studying the incredible research of Dr. Joe Dispenza. Oh my gosh, he's amazing. He's done all this work about how we can heal our bodies with our minds, heal from anything, heal our bodies. And I'm studying all that he has, all this research he's done. And he talks about how you can activate your pineal gland for the purpose of, you know, strengthening your intuitiveness and going into that realm of spiritual information. In fact, I practice meditations where I use breath work to bring the spinal fluids up into that part of my brain so that my pineal gland can be, bathed in spinal fluid to help it open up and strengthen those channels to receive information. I do that now. So that's how far I've come in regard to all this so far. So if I can do it, you can do it too. The great Carolyn Mace says, and I quote, "If you have life, you have purpose. It's not as hard as you think it is." Well, for the longest time, I was like, whatever, Carolyn, it's super hard. This is horribly painful. This is so hard. But now I think I get it. I think I get what she's saying. I think she's just saying that we all have it in us. And we all have that ability to go inward and focus on ourselves and bring about our own healing. We all have that ability to go inside into our deepest emotional experiences and do that healing. We just have to be willing to do it. So, I've gone from feeling powerless to powerful, and I know that I have infinite potential, and I am my genuine, authentic self. If people don't like me as my authentic self, then that's okay. Not everybody has to like me. I have so many people who love and support me that I'm good. But it's like I was traveling through my life with my lights on dim, and then all of a sudden I put them on bright, just really bright lights. And I'm super excited about the ongoing learning that I'll be doing, right? And I'm a work in progress, and I look forward to what unfolds next for me. So I encourage you to start loving yourself. You can't be any better than who you truly are. That is an amazing being. There's no better version of you than your authentic self. It may take some work to build your confidence to be your authentic self, but that work is worth doing and it's doable. The truth is that the universe needs you to be exactly who you are, and we all have meaning and purpose. So I really hope that today I have proven my point that you don't need to know anything to launch into your healing and to do the work. Anyway, so thank you for listening today. I so appreciate you. I've enjoyed sharing part 3 of my own healing journey. Next week, I will be having an amazing guest on by the name of Heather Rowan Robbins, and she is an author of several books and an astrologer. She's an author, developer of the Star Codes astrology. So I don't know much about astrology, and I look forward to hearing how she guides healing with that. So please join me next week for that. We're going to do part 1 where she shares her own healing journey, and then the next week we'll be talking about her Star Codes astrology. So I am so looking forward to that. Thank you again for joining me today. This has been Talks with Tracy, with me, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on Bold Brave Television Network. I'll see you next week.
This has been Talks with Tracy. Join us each week as Tracy and her guests will come together and realize that underneath it all, we are all the same and never alone. So join us each week and let Talks with Tracy be your safe place to land in your healing journey. Right here, Thursdays, 11 a.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.